My name is Malakai. I'm 13 years old and I'm a singer from London.
Some voices arrive quietly, almost unnoticed, and then suddenly they fill an entire room with meaning. Malakai Bayoh's story is one of those rare journeys where talent and tenderness meet at an early age. From church choirs to the brightest television stage, his rise captured hearts across the world. Yet beneath the applause lay a far more delicate story, shaped by pressure, grief, and resilience. This is not just a story of a gifted singer, but of a child learning how to carry extraordinary expectations while holding on to his humanity. Malakai's journey reminds us that behind every breathtaking performance is a deeply human heart learning how to endure. A childhood rooted in faith and community. Malakai Bayoh was born in London in 2010 to parents from Sierra Leone who had moved to the UK seeking stability and opportunity. His early life was shaped by close family bonds, faith, and a strong sense of community. Music was always present in the household, not as ambition, but as expression. His parents nurtured discipline and humility, encouraging education alongside creativity. In this modest but loving environment, Malakai developed a quiet confidence. He was not raised to chase fame, but to respect his gift. This grounding would later become essential as the world began paying attention. Long before stages and spotlights, Malakai learned that his voice was not just sound, but something capable of connecting people and carrying emotion. Discovering emotional depth at a young age. As Malakai grew older, something deeper began to surface in his singing. It was not just accuracy or pitch that stood out, but emotion. While many young performers focus on being impressive, Malakai focused on being honest. He sang with restraint, understanding when to hold back and when to let feeling rise naturally. Music became a language he used to express emotions he could not yet name. At an age when most children are still discovering confidence, Malakai was already learning vulnerability through sound. Singing offered him a safe place, free from judgment, where emotion and control could exist together. Audiences sensed this immediately. His voice did not overwhelm, it invited. There was sincerity in every phrase, a quiet strength that made listeners lean in. Even people unfamiliar with classical music found themselves moved. This emotional awareness became his signature. It separated him from others with similar talent and allowed his performances to feel personal rather than rehearsed. His voice carried truth, and that truth resonated deeply with anyone willing to listen. A viral moment that changed everything. Malakai's life changed almost overnight after a school Christmas performance of "O Holy Night" was shared online. What began as a simple moment meant for family and classmates quickly reached millions of viewers around the world. People were stunned not only by the clarity of his voice, but by its emotional purity. Messages poured in. Invitations followed. Suddenly, attention arrived from far beyond his neighborhood. Yet amid the excitement, Malakai's family became his strongest shield. They ensured that school, choir, and normal routines remained untouched. While the internet celebrated a prodigy, Malakai still woke up as the same boy, carrying his school bag and attending rehearsals. This balance mattered deeply. The viral moment did not inflate his ego or rush his growth. Instead, it gently opened a door to wider opportunity. Malakai stepped forward carefully, guided by family who understood that attention can be fleeting, but character lasts. That video marked the beginning of public recognition, but it did not define him. It simply revealed him to the world at the right pace. Stepping onto the world's prestigious stages. By the age of 12, Malakai had already achieved what many singers spend a lifetime pursuing. His solo debut at the Royal Opera House in Handel's Alcina introduced him to a professional world that demands both excellence and composure. Critics praised not only his voice, but his emotional intelligence and presence. He did not perform as a novelty or a child mimicking adults. He performed as someone deeply connected to the music itself. Shortly after, his duets with Welsh tenor Aled Jones reached millions, further solidifying his reputation. These moments placed him on international stages, yet he remained remarkably grounded. Each performance brought growth, but also new pressure. Expectations increased quietly. Praise became louder. Still, Malakai approached each opportunity with humility. He listened more than he spoke, learned more than he showed. These experiences taught him that success is not about rushing forward, but about understanding responsibility. He was no longer just singing for himself. He was learning how to carry music with care. The golden buzzer, and a life changed in seconds. When Simon Cowell pressed the golden buzzer, time seemed to stop for Malakai. Golden confetti rained down as the audience rose to its feet and his mother rushed onto the stage, overwhelmed with pride and emotion. In that instant, Malakai's world shifted. What had been a single performance became a defining moment, replayed endlessly across television and social media. Viewers called it angelic, unforgettable, historic. Overnight, Malakai transformed from a gifted young singer into a national figure. Yet behind the applause and celebratory interviews, he was still a child trying to understand what had just happened. The Golden Buzzer did more than advance him in the competition. It opened doors to opportunity, but it also introduced visibility he had never experienced before. Every movement, every note, suddenly mattered. While the moment felt magical, it also carried a quiet sense of disbelief. Fame arrived faster than a reflection. Malakai smiled for cameras, but inside, he was still catching his breath, learning that extraordinary moments often come with unseen weight. Navigating overnight fame as a child. In the days following the audition, Malakai's life filled with interviews, rehearsals, and public attention. His face appeared everywhere. Messages of admiration poured in from strangers around the world. While the praise was kind, it was also overwhelming. Adults spoke to him as if he had already arrived, as if his future were written. Yet Malakai still had homework to complete and choir practice to attend. His family worked carefully to protect his sense of normalcy, reminding him that nothing fundamental had changed. Fame, they told him, was not who he was, only something happening around him. Still, the shift was impossible to ignore. He became more aware of how he was perceived, how his words carried weight, how silence could be interpreted. For a young teenager, this awareness required maturity far beyond his years. Malakai handled it quietly, with humility, but the adjustment was real. The Golden Buzzer did not simply elevate him on a show. It reshaped how the world looked at him and how he had to learn to look back. Carrying the weight of growing expectations. As Malakai moved deeper into the competition, expectations grew heavier. Coaches pushed him toward increasingly complex material, expecting not just consistency but visible growth. Critics and commentators began speaking about his future as if it were guaranteed, labeling him a next-generation opera star. These projections, though flattering, carried pressure. Malakai trained intensely, studying phrasing, breath control, and emotional nuance. Rehearsals became longer and more demanding. While he rose to the challenge with discipline, the emotional toll quietly accumulated. Praise became both motivating and suffocating. Every performance felt like a test, not just of skill, but of worth. Malakai rarely voiced these feelings, choosing instead to focus on preparation. Music remained his anchor, yet behind the scenes, the competition was shaping his understanding of success. He began learning that achievement often demands sacrifice, and that maintaining balance is as important as excelling. The applause was loud, but the responsibility that came with it was louder still. Learning that admiration has two sides. Long before the Britain's Got Talent spotlight, Malakai had already glimpsed the less kind side of public performance. During an opera appearance, a heckler interrupted mid-performance with criticism. The moment was swiftly condemned, but its impact lingered. For a child, such an experience cuts deeply. It introduces doubt where confidence once lived freely. This incident stood in stark contrast to the admiration he later received. Together, these experiences taught Malakai an early lesson about visibility. Public life magnifies everything, both kindness and cruelty. He learned that applause and criticism can coexist, sometimes side by side. Developing resilience without losing sensitivity became essential. Rather than hardening him, these moments deepened his emotional awareness. They reminded him that his voice mattered, not because everyone approved, but because it was honest. Understanding this balance helped him continue singing with sincerity, even when the world's reactions felt unpredictable. Approaching the semifinals with quiet strength. As the semifinals approached, Malakai focused inward. He chose challenging repertoire, pieces that demanded emotional maturity as much as technical precision. Training intensified, and expectations followed him everywhere. Still, he carried himself with quiet resolve. On stage, his performances continued to move both judges and audiences. Each note reflected dedication rather than ambition. He sang not to impress, but to communicate. This approach set him apart. While others chased spectacle, Malakai leaned into authenticity. Yet the strain was real. The constant attention, the fear of disappointing others, The desire to honor the trust placed in him all weighed heavily. Music became both refuge and responsibility. He understood now that success was not simply about talent, but about endurance. The semifinals were not just another round. They were a test of emotional stamina, one he faced with grace even as unseen pressures gathered. A loss that reshaped everything. Just days before the final, Malachi experienced a loss that no preparation could soften. His grandmother, one of his earliest supporters, passed away. She had encouraged his singing, listened patiently to his rehearsals, and believed deeply in his gift. Her absence created a silence louder than any crowd. Grief arrived quietly, disrupting routines and clouding focus. Music, once a place of comfort, suddenly carried sorrow. Producers offered him the chance to step back, understanding the weight of what he faced. But Malachi chose to continue. He believed his grandmother would have wanted him to sing. When he stepped onto the final stage, his voice sounded different. It carried vulnerability, loss, and love woven together. The performance was no longer about competition. It became an act of remembrance. In that moment, Malachi sang through grief, transforming pain into expression. Though he did not win the title, he gained something far deeper. His voice matured emotionally, shaped forever by love and loss, marking a turning point not just in his career, but in who he was becoming. Singing through grief on the final stage. When Malachi stepped onto the stage for the Britain's Got Talent final, something had clearly shifted. The confidence was still there, but it was softened by vulnerability. His voice carried a tremor that had nothing to do with nerves and everything to do with loss. Those watching could feel it immediately. This was no longer just a gifted young singer delivering a polished performance. This was a child standing in the middle of grief, choosing to sing anyway. Every phrase felt delicate, as if it might break, yet it never did. Instead, it held steady, filled with courage. The judges' reactions reflected what the audience felt. They were witnessing honesty, not perfection. Although Malachi placed fourth, the ranking felt almost irrelevant. What stayed with people was the bravery of that moment. He later said he gave everything he had and that truth resonated deeply. His performance became memorable not because of where he finished, but because of the humanity he showed. Grief did not silence him. It reshaped his voice, adding emotional depth that could not be taught. When music becomes a place to breathe after the show ended, many expected Malachi to step away from the spotlight and retreat into private healing. Instead, he found a way forward through music itself. Singing became less about competition and more about comfort. Rather than running from his grief, he allowed it to inform his creativity. This shift marked an important turning point. Music was no longer a stage to prove himself. It became a place to breathe. When Universal Music offered him a recording opportunity, the focus was careful and intentional. There was no rush to capitalize on fame. Each decision was guided by emotional readiness rather than momentum. Malachi approached this next chapter with surprising calm. He understood that healing does not come from noise, but from meaning. By leaning into music with patience and care, he began transforming pain into something constructive. His journey after the final was not loud or dramatic. It was quiet, steady, and deeply personal, showing a maturity that went far beyond his age. Golden and the power of emotional resilience. The release of Malachi's debut album Golden marked more than a professional milestone. It symbolized resilience. Every song was chosen with thought, reflecting not just vocal ability, but emotional intention. The album's success on classical charts around the world was impressive, yet what stood out most was how grounded the project felt. There was no sense of chasing trends or forcing maturity. Instead, the music met Malachi where he was. Listeners could hear sincerity in every note. Collaborations with respected composers and musicians followed, affirming that his talent was being taken seriously within the classical world. But numbers and accolades were not the real achievement. The true success lay in how Malachi navigated this period emotionally. He showed that strength does not always look like confidence. Sometimes it looks like vulnerability handled with care. By allowing grief to coexist with growth, he demonstrated that resilience is not about pushing pain aside, but about carrying it gently while continuing forward. Staying grounded. When the world is watching. Despite international recognition, Malachi's daily life remained surprisingly ordinary. He returned to school, sat in classrooms, completed assignments, and spent time with friends. These routines became essential anchors. Fame can distort identity, especially at a young age, but Malakai's environment helped keep him grounded. Teachers treated him as a student first. Classmates teased him playfully, reminding him that he was still one of them. This normalcy protected his sense of self. Outside of performances, he enjoyed simple things: games, sports, laughter, and rest. His family played a crucial role in maintaining balance, reinforcing values of humility and perspective. Malachi learned early that applause fades, but character endures. He accepted praise graciously without letting it define him. This grounding became one of his most admired qualities. In a world quick to elevate and discard young talent, Malachi showed that staying rooted matters as much as rising, growing into change with honesty and patience. As Malachi continued to grow, so did his awareness of change. His voice, like all young voices, began to shift. Rather than fearing this natural transition, he spoke about it openly. He understood that growth would require adaptation, not resistance. This mindset reflected a deeper maturity. Instead of clinging to what had brought him early success, he looked forward with curiosity. He explored new registers, new styles, and new ways of expressing himself. Beyond performance, he began speaking about his hopes for the future. He shared a desire to support music education and create opportunities for children who might not otherwise have access. These ambitions revealed how deeply his experiences had shaped him. Loss taught him empathy, fame taught him responsibility. Together, they shaped a vision rooted in purpose rather than recognition. Malachi's journey is still unfolding, but one truth is already clear. His story is not defined by talent alone. It is defined by how he carries hardship with grace, turning grief into growth and music into meaning, embracing growth and future change. As his voice began to mature naturally, Malachi spoke openly about adapting and evolving. Rather than fearing change, he welcomed it. He viewed vocal transition as growth, not loss. This mindset reflected maturity beyond his years. Looking ahead, Malachi expressed interest in music education and advocacy, hoping to make opportunities accessible for children from underserved communities. His dreams extended beyond performance. He wanted his gift to serve others. This vision revealed a young artist shaped by experience, guided by compassion, and grounded in purpose. A journey still unfolding. Malakai Bayoh's story is far from complete. What makes his journey remarkable is not just talent, but resilience. He rose through applause, faced pressure, endured grief, and emerged with humility intact. His voice continues to grow, shaped by life as much as music. Malachi represents a reminder that even the brightest talents need care, patience, and understanding. His journey teaches us that strength can coexist with sensitivity, and that art, when rooted in humanity, has the power to heal both the singer and those who listen.